Well, hi everyone. Softball season. So I'm glad to see everybody. Wish it was in person. As you can see at Mizzou softball field, it's a beautiful day and we got a sellout crowd going on. But I'm glad to be here. We're excited. Headed down to Florida State tomorrow morning, and we're excited to finally get some dirt underneath our cleats.
Okay, well, we'll open it up to questions.
Hi. So obviously today it was announced that Florida A&M is not going to be able to participate this weekend. I was wondering how exactly that kind of impacts the preparation and how all of that is being taken into consideration.
So we already had our scouting prepared. So it just is one less folder that's going into the bag. But it kind of changes my plans and my pitching rotation because looking in how we were going to open up against Florida A&M, and I wanted to get some kids their feet wet since we really haven't been played together as a team in 11 months. So it does change the pitching rotation. I'm going out now playing against Memphis, a little bit different competition. So it will change in exactly what I'm thinking in terms of pitching and knowing that we're going to have to play Memphis 3 times and Florida State twice. It really does change exactly what I'm thinking and making sure I'm getting the experience and putting us in the best possible situation.
Okay, I'll go to Andrew.
Hey, Coach, just in general, how has COVID impacted you guys' team in the off season with workouts, practices, and how do you think how do you expect it'll impact you? It seems like it already has this season so far. What do you think it'll be like?
It's our fall, we were really able to spend a lot of time on development. I saw a lot more growth in our younger players, kids that didn't get a lot of experience last year, some of our last year's freshmen, and then really was able to spend a lot of time with our true freshmen. So, we had 6-7 months to really spend on really developing their individual skills. So there were certain things that I did as a coach that I normally wouldn't do in a non-COVID year, knowing that we would have fall games, we would have competition, especially with pitchers, that I would always want to make sure my pitchers were going to be prepared to be successful in games. And here I was able to spend a little bit more time on some of the mechanics and slow things down. So I think that they're overly prepared right now. They're in a real good situation. They're very, very healthy. We were able to spend a lot of time in the weight room and making sure that their bodies were well conditioned, especially having as much time off as they did since March. And they're in a real good state right now. We've done a lot of inter-squad. I know we just can't wait to play some outside competition, but I feel real good about where they are right now. We've, knock on wood, we've been pretty healthy all the way through. So now we're just looking to take this in a different mode really with the travel.
Okay, we'll go with Colin, then Eric.
Hey, Coach Anderson. It's too bad you don't have a snow picture in the background there to set the tone, but I guess you're more excited for the warm weather. You mentioned the pitching rotation. Just how do you expect that to go? What are your expectations for that this season? A deep rotation like it was last year, but a young rotation.
Yeah, and I think the biggest hole that we're going to have to try to fill is Eli Daniel, knowing that she was our closer and we always had her to go to every single game. Do we want to have the same mentality? Do we want to have starter, middle reliever, and a closer, and who's going to be best in that role? Looking at it right now, I foresee Emma Nichols being just an unbelievable closer, but at the same time, she's a great starter. If we can get this pitching staff, and we are 5 deep, but if we can get them to start getting closer to complete games, I won't have to rely so much on that middle relief role. And we can almost work in a rotation where everyone is a starter, everyone is a closer. We're just going to really have to see how it plays out. But because we have 5 deep and we're so dynamic in the abilities that they have, we have a couple kids that throw completely down. We have two that throw extremely hard for our level, that are hitting upper 60s, and they both have topped out at 72, which is equivalent to about maybe 106, 107 in baseball. So they're bringing it. That would be Schumacher, and then our freshman Lauren Krings that throw pretty hard. So it's trying to figure out every single day, it's going to be what is going to be the best matchup with our competition to put us in the best possible situation. So really, it's still going to be play it by ear every single day. Who's going to be the starter and what is going to be the best matchup to bring someone into close.
Hey, Larissa, I hope you're doing well. obviously towards the end of last year, it was Kayla Kessinger getting a lot of the headlines offensively. Do you expect her to continue that? And then who are some of the other batters throughout the lineup we should be looking for this year?
I mean, I would love it for Kessinger just to have a comma in that and just continue where she left off. I mean, she's looking great. She's healthy. We're really healthy the whole way through. So I expect some good things out of her. But and again, I just know it's a lot of pressure when you get some of those accolades, and there's a lot of pressure on her wanting to repeat some of those awards and then being picked as a preseason All SEC. She just got to go out and continue to play. And the whole key of her success is going to be surrounded by success. So she doesn't feel like she has to do it all. And that's really going to be the start of our lineup. You have Brooke Wilmus returning. You have Jasmine Rollin. You have obviously Kessinger. You have Hattie Moore. You have Kim Wirt. So your top 5 hitters are returning. And that just gives Kessinger so much more support that she doesn't feel like she has to do it all. And then we have redshirt Cassidy Shomo. That is going to be competing within our lineup. She's going to be starting in right field tomorrow or Friday. So she's going to add a tremendous amount of power. And then you have some other returners with Emma Robbie. We're going to have a freshman that's going to be playing at shortstop in Jenna Laird. So that's going to be exciting. And we're going to be moving Jasmine Rollin around a little bit, maybe in the DP role. So our lineup is completely returning. And then I think the strongest thing is that we have our entire defense.
Okay, we'll go Matt and then Bennett.
Hi there, Coach. Good to see you. I noticed that last season, before it all came to an end, you had, I think it was an 892 or 894 team OPS. Is that offensively the type of production you think you can maintain and make you successful all the way through the league, or is that something that you need to improve upon still?
I mean, I'm always looking to score more runs, that's for sure. It takes a lot of pressure off of our pitchers, but I mean, that's what we're built for. I mean, that's what Chris Malvo, our associate head coach and our hitting coach, that's what he practices. He wants to drive the ball gap to gap. And, it's very, very rare that you're going to have 3 hits in a row to score a run. So we have to look to get people in scoring position right away and then hope for some of those multiple base hits to be able to score more often. So yeah, that's definitely something that we're built for and we're built around. And at the same time, we're very athletic. We're not going to steal 65 plus bases. We're not going to get up around there, but we're going to be able to manufacture some runs and put people in motion because we are so athletic.
Hey, Larissa, how's it going? You sort of touched on it just now, but so you think Jasmine will probably play more DP than shortstop this year, or will she bounce around a little bit more?
So she's been working at short all year long. She's had a couple injuries that have given her some time off. She's still coming back from one right now. So I'm looking for her to be in the lineup from day one. If she's not, because we're still working her back. She hasn't seen a lot of live pitching in practice, and I know she's going to be such a force offensively. So I don't want to set her up with a poor weekend, not a Jasmine Rollin weekend. So if we don't give her a lot of time this weekend, she will soon be in the lineup very, very shortly afterwards, just to get her more live at bats. But because she is coming off of an injury, I don't want to throw too much at her at once. The number one priority is that she's an everyday hitter. And if that is in the DP role, then that's where she's going to be. And what's great is that it gives some of our younger players an opportunity to get in the lineup and compete a little bit. We have 2 kids that are competing at shortstop behind Jasmine, and that's Jenna Laird and Alex Honnold. And both of them are a tremendous force. They're very, very solid. And if we can get them going too, it's just going to add so much more depth to our lineup.
And then you sort of mentioned, I mean, the top 5 has got to be as good a top 5 as there is anywhere right now. Do you think you see sort of Cassidy fitting into that 6th spot afterward and filling it out from there? Or?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, she had an injury last year, so she didn't get any live at bats last year. She was a spot player at Louisiana before she came here. So it's been quite a while since she's seen live pitching at this level. So, looking at that, it's kind of being patient with her a little bit, giving her some opportunities, not putting her in that pressure situation, maybe a little bit more at the bottom of the lineup. And then as she starts to feel more confident and grow, moving her back up there. So I do think that she's potentially maybe a 5, 6, 7 hitter.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go Andrew and then Colin.
On Gabby Dieters real quick, does she have to sit out this year?
Well, she's also coming off of an injury. She had an injury while she was at Kentucky, and originally she was going to have to sit out because she was a SEC transfer, and then the SEC waived all interconference transfers for this year because of COVID if they transfer during the summer. So technically she is eligible, but she's not healthy enough to get into the lineup. But that's someone that I'm really excited that we'll talk about next year, because last year didn't count. And she was a starter at Kentucky. She'll be sitting out this year, and then I get her for another 4. So you just think about the experience that kid's going to have. And I mean, she's already a coach in the dugout right now, learning about all of our pitchers and really studying the game. So I look forward to next year's in-person press release.
And then I also just wanted to ask you about, last year you kind of came in playing like there's nothing to lose because of the postseason ban, I guess. And obviously that was really successful for you guys. You guys were, one of the best teams in the country. How do you kind of repeat that mindset? And do you think that maybe because you guys lost out on last season, there's a similar feel going into this year?
So we don't have anything to prove this year, but what we learned last year is that we can play with a winner's mentality, and that every game does matter. And every coach's dream has always said, you have to play like today's your last game. You don't know if you're going to have tomorrow. And we experienced that before the pandemic hit. We knew we didn't have championships, so we played every game as that it was a championship. So they learned that. And that's the skill that they've learned that they're going to take into this year, knowing that at any moment, everything could be taken away again. Because it was twice for us. It was the first time by the NCAA with the postseason ban, and then second by the coronavirus. So at any time, everything could be shut down again. So we have to continue to play with no regrets and just leave it all on the field. And at the end of the day, I mean, we have no control over where we are and where we end up, but it's that work ethic and that mentality that they truly learned last year that I've seen that is carrying over.
Hey, Coach, softball being one of the first sports to be paused because of COVID in the NCAA, and then one of the last to resume, I was just curious what you thought the sport has learned seeing other sports return first that they can apply to trying to get as much of a season in as possible. And then as an officer in the NFCA, was there any level of concern among members, among players, among coaches with going forward with the season at all, or no?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that we have going for us is that we're an outdoor sport and we're not a contact sport. So we're not within 6 feet other than batter, catcher, and umpire. And if that at bat is going longer than 15 minutes, then we got bigger problems that we got to deal with that come into play with on the field. So we're in a good situation, and the medical task force, and they discussed with SEC coaches, and they've also discussed with the NFCA that the virus is not being spread on contact on the field and within practice. It's what these kids are doing outside of the field of play. So we're just continually educating our players on making sure that they're doing the right things in their dorms, in their apartments, when we travel. And that's really been the biggest discussion moving forward is what are SEC or what are coronavirus best practices? And that's where communicating with our other coaches here at Mizzou and other coaches around the country on what has worked for you, what do we need to be aware of? And we've had this time since fall sports came back to prepare, to be able to do what's absolutely best in making sure that we're doing the right thing when we travel and on buses and airplanes, and making sure that we're accommodating everyone in hotels and matching people up so that we are protecting each other, but we're also protecting our sport and our game.
Go Eric and then Colin.
So you kind of touched on this, but I think when things got shut down last year, you guys were in the top 20 of the country. You guys were undefeated in the conference. So just if you could explain where exactly expectations lie going forward. Is it when you look back in June, we'll have had a successful season if blank has occurred?
Yeah, so we were undefeated SEC co-champs, weren't we? I mean, we're looking forward, and our terminology and our language is about championships. It's getting them to think about championships and to play for a ring. I mean, that's what Mizzou softball needs to focus on is what do you need to do in order to play for a championship? And that's going out and putting yourself in the best possible situation to win the regular season and to be on top in the regular season and then go out to win the conference tournament. And when you start thinking about championships, it becomes an everyday language. And our number one priority not only is to try to win an SEC championship, but it's to get NCAA regionals back at home. to get in our stadium, to be on campus. If we put ourselves in a situation that we take care of business and we're in the top 16 in the country, which we have the potential to do, we'll host regionals. And then if we get in the top 8, we're going to host super regionals. And once you get yourself in that situation to host those 2 events, anything can happen, and you have a better path to the College World Series, which is obviously our ultimate goal is to go to the show. But now, in order for us to be able to have a chance to do that, because you have an easier chance, obviously, when you're hosting, let's go out and start focusing on those championships and get ourselves in the top 16 so we can host.
Coach, I know we talked about pitching being deep, but with the extra year that you got from last year not counting, do you anticipate playing some more girls throughout the other spots in the roster just because there's that extra year and maybe another one this year? I'm thinking maybe of catcher particularly, maybe if Hattie's not quite every day, but other spots in the roster too.
So my whole focus is to win every single game. So I'm going to always make sure that I put together the right roster. There isn't any throwaway games, and our conference is so competitive that everyone is just going to beat each other up all season long. So we have to really focus on making sure that we're winning all our non-conference games to get our RPI up high enough so we can be in the top 16. So there'll never, ever be a throwaway game. But I do think every single player has an opportunity to go out and compete and give us the best chance to win. I would love to rest Hattie. I would love it if the fact that we weren't catching her all 56 games. But if we don't have someone that can go in and do as good as or better than Hattie, then Hattie will have to be the one behind the plate most often. But we have incredible backups behind every single one. And going into this year, because of COVID and knowing at any time someone could be contact traced or come down with a virus, we can't miss a beat. So we're 2 or 3 deep at every single position. And in practice, it's not you're just a freshman, so you're playing behind an upperclassman. It's no, you have to know you are in a situation that you might be our starter because so-and-so might be down for, it could be an injury, it could be COVID this year. So you always have to be prepared. But looking at how deep our roster is and how many players we have, it also puts me in a situation as a coach to look more long-term on someone's career and the career of this program. And are there any potential red shirts within our 30-man roster? Because 30 for softball is pretty high. And we have to analyze as coaches, do we want to take this individual player and are they going to help us win right now? Or are they going to be more successful and we're going to be more successful if we redshirt them and now we have them for 5 years? So those are ongoing conversations all the time, almost every single day. We might be in a situation where if someone does go down, we don't have the opportunity to redshirt. So again, we're continually looking at what's it more important now or the longevity over the next 4 or 5 years.
We'll go Eric and then Matt.
Larissa, obviously, Kessinger and then Brooke Wolmus and Kim Wertz kind of get a lot of attention for what they've done. Is there somebody or 2 people on this roster that you think will take everybody by surprise with how much they're going to contribute to this team?
I'm excited for Cassidy Shomo. I think she's a sleeper. She was a second baseman at Louisiana. Didn't get a lot of playing time, didn't get a lot of accolades. And then when she came here, we immediately moved her to the outfield. And it is just ridiculous, the range that this kid has and how unbelievably strong her arm is. So I'm real excited to see her and, just to see her play because she's just one of those exciting players. And then again, our freshmen, like I said, Jenna Laird and Alex Honnold are 2 that they're kind of like silent big time players that they do everything really, really well, but they're not the flashy ones that you're going to hear about again because they're freshmen and they're still inside their shell a little bit. But those 2 kids are pretty special. And then I got to say, like Lauren Kring, she's a freshman pitcher also, that she's topped out at 72. And I was actually talking to Kessinger yesterday because she was hitting live off of her. And she's like, she has the hardest time being able to hit off her because she will throw anywhere from 65 to 72. And Krings doesn't know how she does it. No, I don't know how she does it as her pitching coach, and she fluctuates in her speed all the time, so she's so hard to square up. So I'm real excited to see her face some outside competition.
Coach, you've talked about the depth that your team has. It means that there are 12 other teams in this league that have the same type of depth. In your just overall evaluation, is this as difficult a challenge for an individual team in the SEC as there has ever been?
Really hard. And then the SEC extended the roster to 25. So that just gives you more players that you have to battle. And it's great for the players that they're going to be able to experience, and I don't have to leave as many home. But yes, and we didn't have any seniors returning. So I'm excited the fact that our younger players got that year, and I've just seen the growth in the younger ones. There are some of our conference opponents that didn't have a lot of players return. So that puts us in a little bit more of an advantage. But yeah, this conference is so unbelievably tough the whole way through. I mean, every single weekend is a super regional, which is really why we play this game. I mean, we're playing to play the highest level of competition, and that's what makes it so great. But every game is a battle, and we got to just continue to grow and build and have these players perform at the highest level.
Any more questions?
Larissa, real quick, I'm sort of curious. It seems like a lot of teams have been across sports have sort of tried to find ways to turn the bad circumstances of COVID into ways to do maybe some unique team bonding or whatever it may be. Is there anything that you guys have done as a team new that almost was sort of as a result of having to think outside the box a little more?
We started off during the summer. We were reading a book called The Mental Edge that was very helpful. We were spending a lot more time doing some video analytics and explaining to our pitchers how to read swing. So there's certain things that we were able to do that I normally wouldn't have time to do or be allowed to do because of our limitations if we were together. But I think the thing I'm most proud of right now that we started doing since January 7th, when we started our preseason practice, is it's called Hero Hardship and Highlight. And every player within our program, every staff member within our program, at the end of practice, they stand up in front of the entire group and they talk about who their hero is and why, what is a hardship that impacted their life and why, and what is a highlight that really changed their life. And it's allowing everybody, and I was the first to go, and my whole staff is gone, and our managers and our players, and we're almost towards the end here. Every person that is gone has really made themselves vulnerable and shared something about them that you normally don't know, because you spend a lot of time on the field and you don't really get to talk about some of these things that really impact you. And it was very, very emotional, but it was very special to hear some of these kids about who their hero is and what is a hardship that they had to face that has really affected their life and impacted them, and really what a highlight is. So at the end of the day, it's you're really learning more about one another. And now you're more invested in the success of them as people. And I can see that on the field, that when someone is struggling or someone is very successful, there is so much compassion for one another. And every team that's successful, the cliche is like, we're a family. And how do you get to be a family? You get to be a family by learning more about one another and truly caring for the person that's playing to your left and right. So that's something that I'm really proud that we did this year. And hopefully it pays off in the wins column, I'll say. But I think that at the end of the day, regardless of what our record is and how well we do, they're going to remember this moment. They're going to remember this year, and they're going to remember everything that they had to overcome to get to this point. And they're going to feel so good about what they've put through and how they've represented Mizzou, that the wins and losses, I mean, they matter, but they're really not going to matter in the long scheme of things.
All right. Any final questions? All right. Thanks for coming to the first media session of the year.